I'd like to summarise what we've been doing and what we're about. So I'll start away at that, with your permission. Yeah. Okay. The past year has marked a strong shift in emphasis towards representing the concerns of self-advocates and families, as well as putting maximum pressure on government, Department of Health and HSE to get on with implementation of policies such as new directions and individualised budgets. Over more than 20 years, I've been extremely frustrated at the lack of progress in breaking the old culture of charity and medical model surrounding service delivery, as we have it in Ireland. Cultural change is a prerequisite to achieving any progress towards supporting people with disabilities to have normal lives. How strange that people with disabilities have been the sector of society worst hit by austerity. Respect has to be the cornerstone of the better approaches we have been promised. People with disabilities and their families are patronised instead of respected in Ireland. As long as certain boxes are ticked and other boxes ignored, officialdom sleeps happy. Inclusion Ireland does not need to beat itself over the head because of the failures of the state, but nevertheless we must recognise the enormity of the challenge we face. We have done great work over many years and managed to bring about the situation where at least the government policies are right. I am much more confident that our focus is clearer and that we will be more effective going forward. We must see capacity legislation implemented. We must see individualised budgets made available. We must see the full implementation of the Value for Money Report 2012 recommendations. These must be achieved now and not at some undefined future date. The past year has seen very important changes. The organisation has become streamlined and more effective and is seen to be doing its job in representing people with disabilities and families. Paddy Connolly, our CEO, has performed well, consistently giving clear leadership to a very dedicated and talented staff team. Paddy's handling of a very difficult and very public issue in the Ars Attracta scandal was a highlight which proved his ability and steadiness in approach. Self-advocates are playing a major role and are very powerful as the voice of our community. We were very effective in highlighting the wrong perpetrated on our people in Ars Attracta. We highlighted that Ars Attracta was not an isolated example. The appointment of Lee Gath as confidential recipient is a major achievement. This public meeting today is testament to your board's commitment to not allowing this horror to be swept under the carpet or simply forgotten. 2 performances of the play Sanctuary were staged at the Liberty Hall Theatre to mark the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. This play is a powerful message from people with disabilities about matters affecting their lives and as such engenders respect. Inclusion has made important submissions on the capacity bill. We are fortunate in having former chairperson Maureen McCartney on our board to provide expertise and commitment in such an important area. We also made submissions on the Sexual Offences Act, implementation of the ICCPR, and various submissions on education. The importance of inclusion's experience and expertise on such matters cannot be underestimated. The Cost of Disability Conference at the Hilton Hotel in Kilmainham was remarkable in focusing on this very important topic in a very erudite and well-presented manner. This is an area in which we will mount a strong campaign going forward. I and my family have direct experience of the very significant burden imposed by such costs, and again, this is an example of the lack of respect for the person with disabilities, where a lesser allowance, that is, as compared with the ordinary social welfare payments, is eroded by exceptional costs, resulting in unfair and unequal treatment of people with disabilities. Inclusion has recently opened an office in Tullamore in cooperation with Pobble. Inclusion has launched the Connect Family Network. This is a hugely important and necessary development because we have to interact closely with the people we represent and empower people to be their own best advocates. In conclusion, I will return again to the respect which is what every individual is entitled to. Bungalow 3, or as a tracta, highlights the degree to which our society has diverged from normal human dignity and respect for the individual. That is why we must continue the fight for rights-based legislation, as well as driving hard for immediate implementation of the policies which government have signed up to but refuse to progress. Thank you very much. David, yeah. I'd like to call on David Quinn for the presentation of accounts, please. Please do.
Good afternoon, nearly, is it? Yes. Good morning. I joined the board of Inclusion just last autumn, and I was delighted to do so, and it was an honour. And there in the last couple of months, I was asked to join the Finance Committee. And I just want to give a couple of brief observations. Paddy asked me to speak on behalf of the Finance Committee, whose chairperson is unavailable today and is standing down. And you've all been given a copy of the financial report prepared by the auditor, and it should be in your pack. Now, these things are very dry, hard to read for many people, and of minimal interest to many. But if I can just highlight a couple of key issues and points just for your information. Obviously you can spend time at your leisure to read the detail of what's in these accounts. But the primary report that should be read regarding the activities of the organisation is the annual report, which again you've got. This is an excellent presentation of the activities and the endeavours of inclusion on all our behalf. But with respect to the finances, again, I just want to bring to your attention that on page 1 it lists all the directors, some of whom have resigned in the last couple of years, in the last couple of months, and we're delighted, I think, to be introducing new members to the board later on this morning. The director's report starts on page 3, and I won't, for the sake of brevity, read it all for you. You can read it at your leisure. But I do want to just highlight to you the fact that with respect to all the directors, we confirm to all the members of the company that there's no relevant audit information which has not been brought to the auditor's attention. So we stand over these figures 100%. On page 8, we show a summary of the income and expenditure of the company. And for assistance, the accounts show both 2014 and 2013 comparative figures. And there is a healthy increase. The important thing to note is that there is, thankfully, a small surplus of €8,104 after all the expenses. Turnover, as you see, increased from 588,000 to 649,000. That page 8, also lists the operating surplus after the administrative expenses. The expenses are inclusive in the main of the payroll costs, and they are detailed separately on page 12. The activities of the company, separate from the annual report, are also included in the financial statements, and again they're noted at the back of the financial reports on page 16, listing all the activities that the company has engaged in. But from my brief experience on the board and on the Finance Committee, I can only advise you that my observation has been that there are budgets in place, detailed budgets in place, and the monthly reports specify and detail the expenditure and the income in comparison to those budgets, and the board is fully aware and fully conversant with the performance of the company on a monthly basis. I've been very impressed with the level of detail that's been provided to the board by the accounts staff, and I commend the accounts staff for their accurate and timely production of the figures for the board. I'm not sure if I can answer any specific queries. If I can't, I'll certainly I'll bring the query back to the Finance Committee for a subsequent answer. But if there's any query that you want to put to me now, I'll try to address it. Otherwise, as I say, I'll bring it back to the Finance Committee.
I just noticed on page 18, during the year the company gratefully received a donation from J.P. McManus. Is it written on any page what donation you received?
€10,000.
Is that included? Is it here in the account?
Should be identified as no, it wouldn't be in the accounts specifically. That's why we put a note
So
in.
it was 10, you got 10.
€10,000.
Oh, very good. I just wondered. Thank you.
Any other query? Yes, Jean. Sorry,
I just thought that Inclusion got a grant from Department of Justice or whatever, and whatever else they called themselves, law reform, for the Pathways project. And I know it was last year, but I'm wondering, are you going to put that into the next year's rather than because
There's additional itemized pages which aren't part of the official accounts, and they'll be listed. All the incomes will be listed from those. They're not normally part of the accounts. But
yeah, no, it's just, it gives an explanation of all the other projects, but it just says the one from Genio, which we got for Pathways Possibilities. I was wondering what was happening.
2014 or 2015, I can't remember what year it came in. Whenever it came into our accounts, it would be reported. It might have come in the end of last year.
That's what I was wondering, yeah. I think it might be some of it this year. Well, sorry, last year.
I think it came in at the end of last year.
Yeah.
So it would have been in 2014 accounts.
Okay, yeah, but we got one for last year as well.
Yeah, it depends on,
So that'll be in next year's maybe.
depends on when it came in, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Jane, I'll have to come back to you now. What was it, Jane? €5,000 or €6,000? Yeah, it's about €5,000 for the Pathways Possibilities program.
Any other question? Thank you. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I thought I was done. I'm not done at all. That's the easy bit, exactly. I need to ask the members' permission for the nomination and appointment of the auditors for next year. I'm proposing that the auditors are reappointed for next year. Seconded?
See the proposals and not. I propose both. Jean, and the second.
Second, Steve. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
So now introduce Maureen McCartney. Maureen will do the resignation and election of Board of Directors. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this will be very short. There's no election involved, luckily. Our organisation has a strong board of directors, and that's important in terms of continuity. We've heard a lot of what was said here this morning, so in order to see policy and implementation of that policy, it's important that the board is very active, and we've always had a very active board, and it continues to do so. This year we have 5 outgoing members of the board. Some have gone within the last couple of months since the last AGM, and some are going now today. Eamon Slevin, John Hannigan, Beverly Smith, Sam O'Connor and Stephen McDermott. And I'd just like to pay tribute to the work that all of those retiring directors have done over the last number of years, and to thank them for their service to the board. The remaining directors who have been on the board and who are staying on the board are Tom Healy, obviously, myself, David Kieran, Phil Davey, Lorraine Dempsey, Eamon Tierney, David Quinn, Joe Mason and Martin Rowan. So that's 9 remaining directors. And then we've had 5 nominations for new directors. Kate Butler, who I think is here, if she wants to stand up so people know who she is. Okay. Francis Coughlin. Not sure. Oh, he's here. Yes. Hi, Francis. How are you? David Garvin, who's also here, just coming into the room. Stephen Keeley, who was a director and is returning. He couldn't stay away. Thank you. And Catherine O'Shea. Is Catherine here?
She's not here.
No, she's not here. Okay. So they're the 5 nominees, and as we have sufficient places for them to fill, there isn't an election, so I therefore deem all of them new members of the board, and I welcome them to the board.
So we're going to go on to resolutions. This is a very important aspect of the AGM because, as Paddy said earlier, the work of the board is informed and directed by the resolutions passed, really. So I'd like to ask Anne Healy to do her proposal of the first one. This AGM commends Inclusion Ireland for the work to date promoting changing places, fully accessible toilet facilities, and calls on all relevant government departments, public authorities and public commercial premises to ensure that changing places are made widely available, to adopt and implement a policy that recognises the need for inclusiveness for all, and to enact relevant legislation to ensure this basic human right is met. So, Anne.
Thank you. Since the last AGM, Changing Places has established a working group with Down Syndrome Ireland, MS Ireland, Disability Federation and the Irish Wheelchair Association. To date, that we know of, there's one changing place, which is in Mary I College in Limerick. There's recently been a meeting with the Minister for State at the OPW, and they have done a feasibility study, and they're hoping to put in changing places toilets in Glendalough, Phoenix Park and Clonmacnoise. The Art Gallery in Dublin are building refurbishment, and they're including one. The Square in Tala have agreed to put one in autumn, and K Leisure in Nace and Athy are also considering the feasibility of putting one in. So really it's about highlighting the need for such facilities and asking anybody here if they know of any developments like shopping centres or leisure centres in their local area, because that's, if you get in at the planning stage or when they're being refurbished, there's a better chance of getting them included. Also, there's a stand at the Care and Mobility Show, which is on the 21st and 22nd of April, and we're looking for volunteers to man a stand. So, thank you.
Very good.
Hello, I'm Bree Cole, individual member, parent. I think it's absolutely astonishing that Anne in this day and age has to come with a motion like a resolution like this, because it should be there already. You know, what's to say about it? It should be there. And it's appalling that it isn't. It should be, it's a natural function, and we need this, and our children need them, and that's it, you know. Thank you.
Yeah.
At the moment, and she couldn't come today. So Anne is seconded it for me here. Now, we want, what parents want actually, the parents I know anyway, is to make respite care a separate budget, have a separate budget for respite care. So we all know where money is going and what's happening with the money. Now, I just wanted to go into a tiny little bit of history. I know we're all tired and I won't take long. Now, I'm saying at present the service is provided within the available budget. That's the overall budget to each centre. Now, this January, parents and mothers of middle-aged adults, including myself, with an intellectual disability, got together to try and make some changes in the service their adult sons and daughters are presently receiving. 2 areas were chosen to concentrate. That's respite and residential care, i.e. community care. The group is made up of 3 different centres, that is, people attending those centres. That's Menai Services, Cheeverstown and the Stewart's Hospital. We met with 1 CEO, 1 manager of respite services and 1 director of services. We lobbied our new local TD, Ms. Lucinda Crichton. She's in turn queried the HSE on our behalf. Now here we're dealing with older people with disabilities, sometimes sick people, and getting on like all of us, you know, or most of us here. Our adult children come from loving homes and need a similar one to go to visit. I'm talking about respite, and meet their friends and maybe have a night out. And us parents and carers, we need the same thing. Of the 3 services mentioned, they give, I'm talking about the notice of respite nights. And 1 service provider will give a notice from the beginning of the calendar year on the respite available to people. 1 a month or 2 months notice they will give. And the 3rd service will give a week or a day maybe beforehand. Now that's from what we found out ourselves. The 3 services gave 3 nights a year last year. 12 nights, 12 nights a year last year. Now that's pretty sad, all round. 12 nights in a year. 12 nights in a year to be given to both carer and those who are being cared for. And we must be grateful for it. We must know our place in a way, you know. I haven't that written down, but I'm just saying that. And they all know that there are different forms of respite. And home services are exactly the service that this group of parents need. That's home support services. Now, extended days, I'm only just listing these really because it's too long to go into them. Extended days are good also, as there can be an element of excitement. I've seen this, of attached going to the O2 or to the Gaiety or an evening and coming home in the dark and being very excited again to see their brothers or sisters when they come home. The replies from the HSE were very bland replies. Again, this is from Lucinda Crichton when she came back to us, and indeed she was very courteous and very interested, though I would say she is not terribly au fait with people with disabilities and needs a lot more of enlightenment. I'm sure that will happen as the years go on with her. Hopefully she'll get back. She's very open to the whole thing. Now, we can write to Lucinda, as we did, and talk about respite and its many forms. And the preamble to respite is the preamble to moving out of our homes. That's what we see with our children and adults in the long run. I'm saying now my son is 47, but I've never really seen the service that I would actually like him to avail of. So he has stayed close by our sides and comes everywhere with us. And but of course he will need some more support than we will be able to give in the long run. So to get back again to financing this, it can't be that difficult, really, because all they have to do is take a certain amount of money from the main area and say, this is for the service of respite for our children and adults. And, you know, they need to be independent. They need to move off at some stage, those who can move off and away from home. Not that we really want them to in one way, because they become part of the furniture. But on the services are changing, and we know that. They're all changing. And individual funding is coming up, individualised funding. And so we get to next to respite care, and God knows that should improve. You know, we should be told in advance when we will have respite. And it's showing a certain lack of respect to the person who's having respite as well as to the carer if we're not involved. You know, as soon as we can, and make it immediate and make it to the respite places interesting, for God's sake, that the people going there really want to go there. That's about it. I'd urge everybody to support this motion, and I could say a lot more, but I think that's about it, really. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The ladies, the seconder, yeah, please. Yeah.
I'm second that motion.
Thanks.
The only thing, I'm from Gill Family and Friends. I agree 100% with what that lady says, but there's another obstacle as well that's coming to its head. They have given block grants in the past, but there's no provision in that for ageing in those that are actually in care. And as we all grow older, our care needs, monetary-wise, are increasing. But there's no provision in budgets made for that as well. So that's a matter that should be kept in care. And as regards respite, it is non-existent in most places, and I wholeheartedly support this motion. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Yeah, well, we can take a vote on that one, please. Yeah. So I deem that resolution to be passed. The third resolution, this is long, and it's very interesting as well. I'm tempted to ask David Gervin here in front of me to read that one through, please. Yeah.
Do you mind if I use the thing there so I can put
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let you think that's okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how many of you are like me and actually enjoy watching a good movie from time to time. I'm sure some of the lads in the room, there's not that many of us left, but probably have seen this movie. I'm not so sure about you mums and ladies. There's a movie called Independence Day. It always sticks in my mind. There was one scene where the President of the United States, and basically they're being invaded by aliens, and he makes a speech to rally the troops. And the speech was, "We will not go silently into the night." And the resolution which I'm about to propose to you, ladies and gentlemen, revolves somewhat around that matter. Sorry. Let me use a slightly bigger printed version that I brought with me because I knew this was going to be an issue. Okay. This annual general meeting calls on the Board of Directors of Inclusion Ireland Limited to review the description of the principal activity of the company, of Inclusion Ireland, and consider the extent to which it includes, or should include, recognition of the role and importance and welfare of families supporting intellectually disabled family members, and through consultation with its members to consider if a change is warranted and to consider appropriate wording and the intent which I lay out below. Just to set the scene, the current wording of the principal activity of Inclusion Ireland is Inclusion Ireland, National Association of People with Intellectual Disability, is a national voluntary organisation working to promote the rights of people with an intellectual disability in Ireland to ensure their full and equal participation in society. What I'm proposing here under this resolution, and if one goes back to lots of the comments that were made during the course of this meeting and this presentation today, in fact, Tom said on several occasions that we represent people with intellectual disabilities and their families. It has been said on frequent occasions throughout all the presentations today. Paddy Connolly says, "We don't believe that the government, HSE, is providing the support for people to live in the community." and that families have been disenfranchised and families are not being listened to. What I'd like to point out is that subjects that have come up today, such as respite, which in my own experience has been drastically reduced in recent years, grossly under-provisioned. I need respite, right? People with intellectually disabled family members of whatever level, but for me personally, and I can speak from my own perspective, severe, profound, with what I would call pervasive or extensive care needs. My daughter requires 24/7 attention. My wife and I have not been on holiday together since, I don't know. You can steal 2 days here and there, but I'd like to go on holiday with my wife. I think that would be lovely. Similarly, there's no planned residential. All we've seen in recent years is that residential services are being cut back. We have a move from congregated settings. We have a need to move people from institutions into the community. But as I pointed out earlier in the day, that is also to the detriment of those families who don't have any service for our intellectually disabled child or sibling at this point in time. The Cost of Disability Conference in September, I don't know how many of you attended. It was actually a very significant point in Inclusion Ireland, I believe. And I think it very, very successfully bore out the facts, the statistical analysis that we, families, are under a significant burden. We cannot enjoy the same employment opportunities as the general population. Our kids live with us under this current government regime more or less until the day we die. It is a cost. It is our houses have to be bigger, more spacious, definitely requiring more heating. We become, victims, if you ask me, of the bin charges. I don't know about you guys, but my bins would have at least 2/3 nappies. Our property taxes is another penalty on people with intellectual disabilities or supporting intellectual disabilities. As we age, we cannot do what the main general population do. We cannot downsize and release capital equity from our homes. These are all issues that we as families need to address. What I'd like to point out is a suggested alternative wording to the principal activities of Inclusion Ireland, to include Inclusion Ireland, the National Association of People with an Intellectual Disability and their supporting families, is a national voluntary organisation working to promote the rights and welfare of people with an intellectual disability and their supporting families in Ireland to ensure their full and equal participation in society. I appreciate that this specific wording is very difficult and requires some consideration by the board. But what I would ask the people here present is to support this resolution, which I would ask Inclusion Ireland to become the voice of the families and not just the people with intellectual disabilities. I think Inclusion Ireland is best positioned to be our voice and to represent us officially. And by virtue of the fact of making a change to the official documents, I think we send a message to the Department of Health, to the HSE, the government, that considerations of the needs of families is officially gathering momentum. And we should no longer be ignored or brushed off or swept under the carpet. I ask you to please support this resolution.
You're up, Claire.
Thanks very much, David. So we'll have Claire Hendrick to second that, please. Yeah.
Just to say, This is on, yes. Just to say that I'm the seconder, Claire Hendrick. I fully support what David has proposed. And also I think the whole inclusion. If we look at Inclusion Ireland, it's so important, as a parent of a daughter with an intellectual disability, that we're all singing off the same hymn sheet and we're all in this together. Thank you.
I can't resist a little joke here. The television ad with the guy downsizing with his twins.
Oh, yeah.
David brought that in mind for me there. If our budgets are stretched too far, maybe we'll have to do something like that. So we... Sorry, yeah.
Thanks very much, Tom Hulton. I'd just like to agree with the motion, but it may be, given the upcoming change in company law, that you're going to have to change the model of the company anyway. It may be an opportunity to embed that in the memorandum of the company to the extent that it's appropriate, to include that formally, if it's approved here, obviously, but it'll be at a time when it wouldn't cost you extra expense or whatever, so maybe as well to roll it in.
Very good. Gee.
That's what I was going to say, that we have to change everything. As one of the people who fought long and hard to get that even up there, I have no problem with the wording, but I know what strategically and everything what you're going to have to do to change everything. But I support the motion that we should definitely include families somewhere, but I think we did at the time, but we just couldn't get around to putting it in the right wording. So, okay, I support the motion.
Thank you.
Hi, Rachel, parent and director of LEAP. We also support a lot of families who have a family member with autism. Some have an intellectual disability and some people with autism do not, but they would have certainly a disability. Just throwing it out there, okay, not all people who live with a disability have per se an intellectual disability. They do have a developmental disability, but it's not classified under the current classifications as an intellectual disability. Just going to put that out there, okay? So, for example, my son, lives with paid support in the community, an individualised budget. He qualifies for disability allowance. He qualifies for an individualised set of disability supports, but he does not have an intellectual disability. He does, however, have a disability, and it's called autism. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Jerry. Hold on.
Hi, Jerry McDonald, St. Joseph's was saying, just one note of caution. I'm certainly not against what everyone said, and I empathise with what David said. But among our members are service providers. I mean, where did they fit into the picture? Now, whatever we think of service providers, and we have an awful lot to say against them today, but an awful lot of them are members. Just to bear that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Is it mutually exclusive?
But I think, the view in terms, and this is a conversation that the board are having at the moment. You can probably hear me anyway, can you? Is that we will be moving towards a relationship with the organisations that provide service to people with disability, that they will be supporting Inclusion Ireland because they support our work in advocating for persons with a disability and family members. We won't be in a situation where we will be advocating for organisations that provide services because they have very significant advocacy already and sway at all levels of government. So Inclusion Ireland's relationship with organisations that provide services will be one where their membership is endorsing our work, advocating for persons with a disability and family members. So they'd be welcome to be members, but it'll be on the understanding that they recognise our advocacy role for persons with a disability and family members. So I hope that answers it.
So can we take the motion as stated? Can we vote on it? Yeah, please. Yeah.
Someone have a question?
Sorry, hold on. Is there another question or not? I don't think so. I think the hands are sent up.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, sorry, we'll take that vote again, please. Yeah, I take that as being passed. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I'll now ask Paddy Connolly, our CEO, to do the closing remarks. And thank you all very much. It's an excellent meeting. There's one man back here.
Thanks, Tom.
Owen Kelly, parent. I just want to ask a clarification. One of the last year's resolutions, the one calling for an extension of the remit of the National Advocacy Service, was no update on that. So I'd like to know why was that, and if there's any plans to do some follow-up on that. I think it's very much related to the motion that David made about extending even the remit of Inclusion Ireland to include supporting families. That's the National Advocacy Service doesn't do that, as far as I understand, and I just want to know is there any update or plan to update it this year?
Well,
thanks.
There's no update in the sense that they have their protocols for who they support. They only have 35 advocates nationally. And again, as a consequence of ours attracted, there's an ongoing discussion between Department of Social Protection, CIB, Citizens Information Board and the HSE about looking at advocacy again and expanding the types of advocacy supports that are out there. And we'd be involved with those conversations with a number of others. But in short, there isn't any. They set their protocols. They don't not support families, but because of the demand, they don't. They don't have a policy of not supporting families, but because of demand, they can't get to support families. So technically, they're not supporting families. But it's not as if it's restricted under their rules or anything like that. It's just that the demand is so high in terms of congregated settings and institutionalised settings that for the 35 advocates nationally. So we are pushing and in conversations with CIB and the Department of Social Protection and the HSE about resourcing and funding a much broader approach to advocacy. And part of that is calling for statutory powers for an advocacy service, personal advocacy service that would have statutory powers and those types of issues. But the issue you're raising in terms of supporting families is a really important one. And it's a lot of the focus of our advocacy work is working towards supporting families. And we refer where we can adults to the NAS, and we focus our work then on supporting families because it is a significant gap, and also parents who have an intellectual disability and that whole parenting role there. So just on your point on, because you sent me an email there a while ago just for an update on the resolution, I think it's important to say from a membership point of view that Inclusion Ireland doesn't set its strategy based on the resolutions that just come from the floor. You know, we need to look at a broad range of issues right across disability and prioritise on the basis of what's coming from the ground. We're also funded by the HSE to deliver a certain number of approaches, which is networking families and working with self-advocates. So the resolutions are important. Like, for example, there was one last year on sporting clubs. It wouldn't be on our agenda to engage with the whole sport arena, although it's important. We wouldn't have the resources to engage with every resolution that comes up. We might be able to raise it, but we couldn't engage with every resolution. So it's just important to say that there may be frustration for people that they make a resolution and they wonder why Inclusion Ireland didn't follow through on it. But we're a very small organisation with very limited resources, and we try and prioritise where we can actually leverage real change. Where can we make a difference? Which brings me into my closing comments. I mean, I just want to thank the board, a very, very strong board, very, very supportive board, very engaged. You know, we have a lot of very good debates at a board level. I want to thank the board for the support and Tom for his support over the last year. I'd like to thank my colleague Fiona, who internally leads a very strong and committed staff team, and the work that we do in the area of training, the developing the family network, self-advocacy. There's been real progress made over the last year in terms of developing that work. So I'd like to thank a very committed and driven staff team, and of course the admin staff, Karen and Adele, Paul and Adrian, who are here. So I'd really like to thank those for a very committed. We're a very small organisation, 8 or 9 people, but I think we hit significantly above our rate and above our weight. And I think the appointment of Lee Gath, which we conceived of and asked a couple of other organisations to support us in that. The critical report we did of HICWA, that's leading to changes within HICWA, where they're now setting up 2 separate teams, one to investigate disability services and the other to investigate elderly services, where the inspectors were actually mixed and they were bringing in knowledge from the older person section into disability, which didn't really fit. So we're seeing changes in HICWA. They're now applying training to their investigations, rights-based training. So there's a lot of things that Inclusion Ireland is doing And it's an unfortunate thing to say about Ors Attractive, but it's times like that when you get an opportunity to actually put real pressure on to achieve some changes. The work that Sarah and others have done on the capacity legislation, we're told that will be in by May of this year. We won't hold our breath on that because it wouldn't be healthy to do that. But we're told it will be in this year. We're pushing constantly on that. So right across a number of areas, I think Inclusion Ireland is hitting above its weight. And I think that's down to a very dedicated staff team and a very hard-working staff team. And a couple of people I see in the audience, for example, Maura Marr here, who's done a lot of our research with Pauline Conroy, who do research for us at a very a cost, I won't say low cost because they might encourage them to put up their prices, but at a cost that I wouldn't expect to get elsewhere, let's put it that way. And so we have a lot of support out there from people who support our work, and to yourselves, people who sit on committees and various other structures. So I'd just like to say thanks to everyone, and thanks to the board in particular for the support over the last year. Thanks very much.